Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a core concept in dbt that can make your data pipelines faster, cheaper, and way cleaner to maintain. I'm talking about materializations. It's that classic dilemma for any data pro, right? You want your pipelines to be fast, cheap, and clean, but it always feels like you have to pick just two. Well, as we're about to see, choosing the right dbt materialization is your secret weapon to actually getting all three. So, to make this all super clear, we're going to skip the boring theory. Instead, we're going to learn by doing. We'll build a simple but totally realistic retail analytics project together step by step. Okay, so our project has three main layers. First, we've got staging, where the raw data comes in from the source. Then there's the logic layer. That's for all our internal business calculations. And finally, the Marts layer, which is for the final reports that our users will see. And here's the key. At each one of these steps, we're going to have to make a really important choice. All right, let's start building. And I want you to think about choosing the right materialization, kind of like choosing the right building material for a house. I mean, you wouldn't use drywall for the foundation, would you? Of course not. The same idea applies right here. First up is our staging layer. For this, we're going to use a view. Now, a view is basically just a saved query. Think of it like a recipe for your data. It doesn't actually store any food, or in this case, data, so it costs you nothing in storage. And since the query runs every single time you look at it, the data is always perfectly fresh. And this really gets to the heart of the strategy. I mean, why would you build a whole physical table for a step that nobody's ever going to query directly, right? That would just be a total waste of storage space and compute credits. Using a view here keeps our whole pipeline lean and, most importantly, cheap. And honestly, here's the best part. Look how easy this is. You just add this one little line of code, this config, right at the top of your model. That's literally it. Now dbt knows, okay, I'm going to create this as a super lightweight view, not some big expensive table. Okay, let's move on to our next layer, the logic layer. And here we're going to use a really special, kind of clever materialization, ephemeral. You can think of this like temporary scaffolding that you use when you're building something. It's there to help construct the next piece, but then, poof, it disappears. Now, what's so incredibly clever about this is how it keeps our data warehouse tidy. So this model here, it's got all our tax calculation logic. We definitely need the math, but we don't need a physical table called int_tax_logic just cluttering up our database. By making it ephemeral, that object never even gets created in the first place. And just like with views, check it out, it's a single line of code. We just set the config to ephemeral. Now, behind the scenes, what dbt does is pretty cool. It basically copy-pastes this SQL and injects it as a common table expression, or a CTE, right into any models downstream. It's pure logic with absolutely zero physical footprint. Okay, and finally, we get to our data mart. This is the final report that, let's say, our CFO is going to use every single day. For this, we need something solid, something reliable, and most of all, something fast. We need a table. A table is like the prefabricated finished product. The data is physically stored and ready to go at a moment's notice. So at this stage, our priority totally shifts to the end user's experience. Think about it. If this final report was a view, the database would have to recalculate everything from scratch every single time the CFO refreshed their dashboard. That's slow and expensive. By materializing it as a table, the results are already computed, so they load instantly. And you probably guessed it, we just set the materialization to table. We're telling dbt, hey, do all that heavy lifting one time during the dbt run, and then just store the final aggregated results in a physical table for crazy fast access. So we've made our big architectural choices for each layer of the pipeline. The big question is, what actually happened? What did dbt do behind the scenes? Let's peel back the curtain and look inside the data warehouse to see what dbt built for us. This slide just lays it all out perfectly. You can see dbt translated our view config into a create view command. It turned our table config into a create table command. And what about our ephemeral model? It did nothing, at least nothing in the database. It just held onto that code, ready to inject it into that final step. Pretty smart, huh? And right here, this is the real payoff. This is the aha moment. If you were to log into your Snowflake account right now, you'd find our STG sales view and you'd find the FCT daily revenue table. But you would search all day and you would never find int tax logic. Why? Because it doesn't exist as a database object, which is exactly what we wanted. Clean, efficient, and super organized. And here's the proof that the whole thing worked. Take a look at the final table. Even though that logic model is completely invisible, its calculations, that total tax column, are correctly baked right into our final physical table. We get all the correct logic without any of the clutter. That's a huge win. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground, but it really all boils down to a simple but really powerful strategy. Let's distill all this down into a clear playbook that you can start using on your own DBT projects right away. Think of this table as your strategic cheat sheet. You see the pattern, right? We start off lean and cheap with views for our staging models. Then we keep all our intermediate steps organized and totally invisible by using Ephemeral. And we finish strong with power and speed, using tables where it matters the most for our end users. Look, at the end of the day, making these deliberate choices about materializations, that's what elevates your work from just writing SQL to actually engineering a data platform. You get to take direct control over its performance, its cost, and its clarity. So my question to you is, take a look at your own projects. Which part of your pipeline are you going to optimize first?